There's something that I learned back in my first job I ever had working at McDonald's, and it's that you should never really open up and be vulnerable with coworkers because ultimately it didn't end well for me, and I can't see it ending well for the majority of people that might allow themselves to get vulnerable. But I kind of just want to bring up some stories like something that I've experienced and kind of my view on why I think it was a good thing I learned it at an earlier age than later on. And when I worked at McDonald's, there was a few people that I had went to school with that worked there, and there was a few girls there. There was one that she had went to a different high school, but she was super smart, and I was attracted to her, and I was always like a pretty shy guy um, for majority of my life. I still am a shy guy, but um, I ended up getting like comfortable there and started talking to people and opening up a little bit, and I ended up getting this girl's phone number and Snapchat, and we started talking outside of the workplace, and lo and behold, it turned into a relationship, and it lasted maybe a few months, and then it kind of fell apart. And I'd say the biggest thing I learned from that was like, you really cannot mix business with pleasure. And I know this was like obviously different from like, it was two people on a level playing field. It wasn't like there was conflict of interest or anything involved, but um, I realized that like you can't mix these things because you need to have a place to go where you're not feeling tension or um there's not going to be any conflict because of a prior relationship that didn't work out. It's like you're mixing this with like a place that you're supposed to go to get a paycheck when it doesn't need to be like that. Like it should never be like that. It's like because I know relationships can ultimately ruin jobs for some people. Like they might have to completely move on to another career because it created too much conflict, and it was too much for them to handle and see that person every single day. And I'm thankful that the girl that I was talking to, which there was actually two girls that I got into relationships with at McDonald's when I was working there, and they both didn't last very long, and it just was awkward after. It's like it's hard to just act like everything's normal and go in and just have like a clear headspace. Like you're just always kind of having like this guard up, and also trying to be civil with this person that might have done you wrong. The second girl definitely did me wrong, and that's why it was a little bit like tougher, like being there and seeing that person every single day. There was definitely that tension there, and there'd be little snarky comments made, and it made it for a just a brutal experience, to be there. And it started gossip between other people, and this doesn't just have to be dating, in the workplace. It could be friendships as well. And I'm not trying to come off as like shun these people away and stuff like that, but I'm saying just kind of keep more surface level because like you could create cliques and groups of friends, and something happens and somebody was vulnerable and says something, and it gets spread around, or there's countless things that could happen with you becoming vulnerable with coworkers, and it's hard not to, in a sense, especially because like the job I have currently, I work 50 hours a week, and even if it's 40 hours a week, that's a decent amount of time to be around other people. And it's like obviously it's kind of like your second family. It's like sometimes you're even spending more time with these people than you are your own family. So it's like, yeah, you should be cordial and be civil with these people. Like I was told back in like elementary days, like you don't have to like everyone that you're working with or you're associated with. but be civil, and they my teachers taught me that because they're supposed to be role models. It's like they obviously had people and colleagues that they didn't really appreciate much, but they had to maintain um, a good atmosphere for us kids, so they couldn't be over here yelling at each other, type of deal. But it's like you should have that in all aspects of your life. It doesn't have to just be, say you're a therapist or a doctor or anything. It's like obviously be professional, but I don't know, man. You know what I'm saying? And I think be the person. Like I started treating it kind of like at like when I'm at the gym, like give them like a heads up, or like a little nod, or I don't know, like a little smile, whatever. It's like you're just being civil with these people, or say good morning, or um I don't know, like you're literally just being civil with these people. It's like you're not supposed to be at the workplace to make friends, and if you do make friends, it's awesome. But what I'm trying to say is don't make that like the goal, and certainly be cautious and selective with who you allow in your life. Like I said, like I have friends that I still talk to this day from previous jobs that I had, but I think it's just you need to um, certainly be careful with what you share, because it definitely can create tension for the workplace, and I'm glad that I learned that sooner rather than later, because I feel like it could obviously affect things a lot more later on, especially if you start getting into a higher status in the workplace, because then it's like whatever your actions are, or things you might have told somebody might hold a little bit more value now because you've moved up the ladder. And I've also seen, like, at my last job when I was traveling, like there was some guys there that were like extremely close to the bigger boss, and it's like there was times that I would be like, I wish I was kind of like that, but at the same time, like I feel like there's certain trade-offs there. Like, yeah, you probably get a little bit more of like the inside of like the gossip and stuff like that, but um also, like, then you kind of look like you might be a suck up or something like that. I mean, I don't know, there's got to be like a fine line, and yes, be cordial with people, because you're not there to make everybody else's life a living hell. We all just want to be there and get our paychecks, but just be careful, man, because these people, they can act like your friend and then turn around and backstab you in an instant, or say you, I don't know, you did the smallest thing where I mean, you showed up a little bit late, or um, I don't know. Like there's certain things that somebody could just be petty about to get you in trouble. So those are my thoughts. Appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.